I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
Well, it looks like you're the one who needs to be taught a lesson, pal. Class is Pain 101. Your instructor's Casey Jones.
Look, I don't want to fight you.
Well, tough rocks, pal.
It's a cup of coffee in the big time, yeah. Cup of coffee in the big time.
Hey, what do you say we both be independent together, huh?
I guess one person can make a difference. Enough said.
We have the tools, we have the talent. It's Miller time.
Luminous beings, so we, not this crude matter.
I said, empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless, like water. Now you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put it in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now water can flow, or it can crash. Be water, my friend.
You, me, or nobody is gonna hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
Hey, these aren't my rules. Come to think of it, I don't have any rules.
Well, that's great. Either I have a monster in my kitchen or I'm completely crazy.
I don't think you're crazy.
You know something? Maybe I am insane. Maybe I am insane.
Mm-hmm. Pizza dude's got 30 seconds.
Mm-hmm. The cream will rise to the top, oh yeah.
That's the nicest thing a dog can say about anybody.
Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria. Enough, I get the point. You know what you need? You need a Brazilian plastic surgeon.
I've got one that can see.
It's showtime.
All right. Hey, everybody. How's it going? Welcome to Comic Book Radio. I'm your host, Peter Cimetti. This is episode 235. We're going to be talking about creating your perfect comic. Selecting story, writer, artist, characters. You know what goes into making a comic. I also want to hear from you guys about whether you're a creator or you don't consider yourself to be a creator of comics. I'd like to hear from you guys about what your ideal comic story would be. Maybe who you would put, like if you're not a creator, who you would put as the writer, who you would put as the artist. Even if you want to go into inking, coloring, lettering, editing, it's completely up to you how deep you want to go into that. Creating your own team, almost like, fantasy sports, but fantasy comics, but not the genre. Very curious to see what people say, because I'm always curious as to what people are into, what they read, what kind of characters speak to them, what stories really seem to hit them hard and stick with them. So I'm going to put the link soon in the chat if you guys do want to join, you want to come on here and talk about that. Please feel free to do so. We'll only be here for about an hour or so tonight. I'm in the thick of lettering and putting together King Cryptid issues. So making good timing with that so far. So far, so good. As you can see behind me, the King Cryptid Glow in the Dark t-shirt is here. Of course, it's not glowing in the dark right now. But I gotta tell you, you charge this up in any decent light, especially in the daytime. It's so cool. It's so cool. You'll spook yourself if you go from the outside or a well-lit area into like a darker... Like sometimes I don't bother putting on the light in the bathroom. Just going to go in there, wash my hands. And there's a mirror there. And I'm like, what's that? So that's Nick Hunter art on there. Only a couple left. If you go to alternacomics.com/merch, there's only a couple of these left. They're all printed up. A bunch of them already shipped out to backers that have ordered other things and were waiting on this shirt as well. So I do that sometime with, if not all the time, when it comes to different items in campaigns. I'll send them out as they get here, and if you've got an order that's ready to go, I'll ship you out whatever I have ready and able to send out. So a couple people are getting these in the mail very soon, and I'm hoping that in a few weeks I'll get the collector boxes and the trading card boxes in. That's the last stuff I'm waiting on. And then obviously the books will go to print, and then once they arrive, I'll start shipping everything out, and we can really get the fulfillment on King Cryptid number 5 to 9 underway. So yeah, tonight's topic, I'm really curious as to what you guys feel about this topic. I'm also going to go over, if you are a creator, how I personally go about, what I consider making my selections for not just my own stories, but for a lot of the books that I've signed on over the years, the kind of things of, what spoke to me, why I thought this book was a good book. First and foremost, every book I ever published, I published it because I thought, I would buy this. I like this. This is good. I would buy it. And I think other people would buy it too. And instead of seeing someone else publish it and wonder why I didn't, I thought, okay, I'll take it on. I'll publish it because I thought it was that good that I would actually buy that. I would be a customer. I would be a reader. So that was the first thing that ever goes through my mind when it comes to looking at submissions and being a publisher and that kind of a thing. It was always, would I want to buy this and read this? Because if I didn't really want to buy it or read it, it was going to be really difficult to try to tell people that they should also want to buy it and read it. And I know a lot of people maybe go, well, I only like a certain kind of genre or a certain, maybe all ages books or mature books or whatever. I like everything. So as long as it spoke to me, as long as I thought it was really good and I wanted to read more of it and I would buy it, I figured that's a pretty good indicator of, yeah, I think I want to publish this. So that was always what led me down that path. Now, sometimes it didn't work out because sometimes there was, yes, I would absolutely want to read this and buy it. And then having the conversation with the creator, I've realized that their production schedule doesn't really work out, or there's other factors there in terms of basically always it would have to do with scheduling and how certain things just wouldn't fall into place. So that would largely be the deterrent, the final deterrent after everything. But the first thought was always, I would like to buy this and read it. All right, so let's see who we have here tonight. I'm going to say hello to you guys. We got Spicer McLeroy here. What's up, Spicer? He says, thanks for covering these topics. More episodes like these, Brother Pete. No problem. Appreciate it. I'm glad to be able to do them. Spicer says, any ETA on them editing services? Okay, well, Spicer, and this, I guess, goes for everybody else. If you want to send me an email at pete@alternatcomics.com and send me the gist of what your book is about, send me the pitch. Don't go too crazy with it. 3 to 5 sentences at most. What kind of genre? What kind of age rating? How many pages you imagine the issue itself to be, not the script, and the creative team that you have involved, if you do have anyone else involved at this point in time, whether it's tentative or not. At the very least, though, if you could also let me know what kind of art style it is that you'd be looking for, in terms of, like, if you don't have an artist on board, let me know what kind of art. Can you describe the art to me? Use words like dynamic, different kind of descriptive words. So, and not just dynamic, but describe the art. Is it moody? Is it more engaging? Is there a lot of action? So just describe like how you want the art to feel. Even if you say something like high contrast, powerful, that kind of thing. Or maybe it's more subdued. Maybe it's more nuanced. You've got a more subtle approach with the art style to the story. That'll help me to envision it. If you want, you can even mention an artist, like a popular mainstream artist or something along those lines, and say that I'm looking for some style that's similar to that. And the reason that I say that is because as an editor, I want to make sure I'm aware of visually, when I read that script, what it potentially could look like. So that's very important. We got Ben here. What's up, Ben? Hope you're doing good. Says, hope you're all doing well. I hope you're doing well, Ben. Good to see you here. Cole King says, hey, Pete. Great to see you. Rough night over here. So I'm grateful for the company while I work. Hope everything's okay. When I hear rough night, I imagine something bad's going down. I hope you're all right. Hope it's just work-related, you know. But even then, I hope it's not too bad. But thank you for being here, Cole. Good to have you around, buddy. What Geeks Do Network says, hey, everyone. Glad to be here. Dig the new intro. But I used to rehearse the whole Rocky speech. Gonna miss it. Yeah, I'm gonna miss it, too. I'm gonna miss the song as well. The Bill Conti song. The big reason for that is I'm finding that more and more, even on my own side of things, with certain videos, certain songs, certain clips even too, I'm not getting just copyright claims. I actually got copyright struck on one of them. Now, they only give you 3 chances. You get 3 strikes, you're out. Now, luckily, the strikes go away within 90 or so days, so I got about 60 or so left on this particular copyright strike. It was the playing of a song. And so I was like, oh boy, you know, all of these songs, they get copyright claimed, and you can't monetize. I'm not monetized anyway, but if I was, I wouldn't be able to monetize the video. So I looked at it, I put together the intro, put it through, and not only did the Bill Conti song come up as being a claim, but the Rocky Balboa speech comes up as a copyright claim. So I managed to put a little bit of a segment of it, and everything on the new intros is fine. There's no copyright claim, there's no problem, there's no nothing for now. So we'll see. We'll see how long that lasts. I got some royalty-free background music for it and kind of got all the clips together and remastered it. I sort of half-assed it a bit when I put it together the first time, and I didn't really like the sound quality. So I remastered everything, put it together, spent like an hour or so on that, and now I've got an intro for the regular comic book radio show, and then the intro on the paranormal episodes. I've got 2 clips in the beginning of it, so it's kind of a little longer, but it's also a little different. So there's the big explanation that no one asked for, and I'm sure no one really cares, and that's fine. We got Bobo here. What's up, Bobo? Hope you're doing good. We got Comics for Life in the house. What's up, Comics for Life? Hope you're doing well. We also have, let's see, Shrek is here too. What's up, Shrek? Appreciate you being here. Irene's in the house. How's it going, Irene? Hope you're doing well. Good to see you tonight. Sinopa Publishing here too. How's it going, Sinopa? Golden Tree is also here. What's up, Golden Tree? Shrek says, building that shed has been exhausting. I have the platform in place and 4 walls fabricated. We'll raise the walls Sunday. Well, fantastic. Fantastic. Good to hear that. Ferris Comics. What's up, Ferris Comics? Hope you're doing good. Spicer says, I care, bro. Well, I'm glad you do. Thank you so much, Spicer. Appreciate that. All right. So I'll start off with this. We'll get this out of the way real quick. Okay, so Blood Moon. Blood Moon only has today and tomorrow left on Indiegogo. It's about a day and a half left at this point. Maybe a little less if you really want to split hairs. We're at 67% funded with the 145 backers on board, 9,456 raised. Now, this is a crossover graphic novel between King Cryptid and Blood Realm. Chiron Morvel in particular. So King Cryptid meets Chiron Morvel. Trapped in a strange dimension, King Cryptid discovers that the villainous Vargor has his sights set on interdimensional domination and will stop at nothing to control and corrupt all life. If he hopes to return to Earth, King Cryptid must fight this cosmic threat alongside Chiron Morvel and the Iron Wolves. If you are a fan of Blood Realm, or hopefully King Cryptid, you gotta check this out. You gotta check this out. This is gonna be a lot of fun. I'm putting in the Indiegogo here if you guys want to check it out. There's a link to back there, and then also the link on alternacomics.com. We got a lot of great stuff going on this campaign. You can see the preview pages on the Alterna site. You can also see the preview pages too on the Indiegogo if you want to go there instead. We've got t-shirts on the campaign, a glow-in-the-dark shirt, and an all-over print front and back, both featuring the art of Keir Covington. The creative team involved, it's a 71-page story by me and Robert Geronimo, with art by Keir Covington. Colors by Christian Rossi on 6 pages of the book, and then the rest of the book will be colored by Robert Geronimo. That's 65 pages colored by Rob. It's going to be an 80-pager, but 9 pages will not be of story. So you got a chapter break, you got a couple pages in the beginning and a couple pages at the end. So this book here is perfect not just for readers of King Cryptid or Blood Realm, but for new readers too. This is an easy to get into story. This isn't anything where you're going to feel like you're in the middle of a conversation or the middle of a story arc or anything like that. We jump right into it. You get quickly familiarized with the characters. Who's good, who's bad. You at least get a strong sense of that. And you get a sense of where the story is headed. That's set up perfect in the first 5 pages. We get right into it and we get going. On the campaign, there are 4 covers. Cover A, Cover B, Cover C, and Cover D. The first cover, and they're all wraparounds. First cover is a traditional style cover. It's got the title on it. It's got credits on the back. It's got description and a barcode. Cover B is art only. There's only art on it. There's not even wording on the spine. It is just art. And it's great art by Keir Covington with colors by Christian Rossi. Cover C is a sketch cover. The back cover, completely blank. Not even a barcode on it, because we're not selling B, C, and D to retailers. So even if retailers order, these aren't technically for resale. And we're not going to print any extras of B, C, or D in such an amount that we will be selling these to retailers. Very, very, very few extras of B, C, and D. Probably a little bit more of C, but very limited on B and D. So C is a nice sketch cover, nice uncoated paper stock, really great to draw on. If you know our sketch covers, you know that they're always great. This is going to be no exception. Cover D is glow in the dark. That's going to be art only, line art, complete wraparound glow in the dark on that one. So those are the 4 cover options. Pick whatever you like. If you want to get all 4, if you want to get 1, 2, or 3, it's up to you. That's your option. You don't have to get all of them if you don't want all of them. But I recommend getting the glow in the dark. That's my personal favorite. It's going to look really good. We got stretch goals on the campaign if we are lucky enough to reach those. And then we also have options for the prints, posters, a trading card, add-on signatures. You can get Rob and Keir to sign your graphic novel. We've got the t-shirts, like I said, and we've also got commissions. You can get a commission sketch card on a glow-in-the-dark card. The card itself is coated with glow-in-the-dark, and we can do a black and white commission on there for you, or I should say a black and glow for you. And the commission sketch cover, that cover won't be glow-in-the-dark, although if we were going to reach a certain amount on the campaign, I could have made it glow-in-the-dark. I don't know if that's going to happen, though. It's a pricey ordeal to do the glow-in-the-dark. But you can get a commission sketch cover regardless, and those are all options on the campaign. Same exact options are on the Indiegogo campaign as well. And if you haven't had a chance to read Blood Realm or King Cryptid, on the Alterna site we make it nice and easy. You can also order these too on the Indiegogo, but they're right here for you guys to check out on the Alterna site. And Blood Moon does take place after King Cryptid number 9 and after Blood Realm number 18. And if you are a reader of either of those titles, you'll definitely be getting those books well before you'd be getting Blood Moon, which is projected for like a summer 2025 release, as opposed to King Cryptid 5 to 9 coming out very soon, maybe a month or so, and then Blood Realm 15 to 18 probably in about 2.5 months, 3 months tops. So you'll definitely have Blood Moon well after those books. So if you want to read in sequential order, you could, but you don't need to read them in sequential order if you don't want to. All right, so let's get that one out of the way, and we'll have a closeout, an initial funding closeout stream on the Alterna channel tomorrow night. But if you do want to back the campaign, please do so as soon as possible. We would like to get as close to the goal as we possibly can, if not, in fact, reach the goal by tomorrow night. I've seen miracles happen, and maybe we'll get one within the next 24 hours or so. But either way, we'll continue to fund the book. I'll let you guys know a little bit about some of the changes to the campaign that'll be taking place after tomorrow. So on Sunday, the 22nd, correct? Yes. There'll be some changes to the campaign. Some perks will be coming down. Some perks, or if not most, I should say, most of the perks will be limited. And I'll talk more about that tomorrow night. All right. So Spicer says, get that Blood Moon, y'all. Look at that. Cole says, Kier has been posting some art on X lately. This book is going to look amazing. Yeah, Kier, he gets better and better. And it's because he keeps working at it. That's a good segue here for me. All right, so selecting the story, the writer, the artist, the characters, right? You want to create your perfect comic. Now, no comic is going to be perfect, but you want it to be perfect to you. You want it to be perfect for you, and then hopefully other people will enjoy it and maybe not find that it's perfection, but they'll like it. Isn't that the goal? You want people to like what you create. You want them to enjoy it. All right, so for me personally, now this is all the stuff I have to talk about experientially, as opposed to saying that this is some kind of authoritative thing. It's not authoritative. This is just how I go about it and what my thought process is. Maybe you can relate, maybe you can't, whatever it may be. Take whatever is useful to you, discard the rest. So selecting the story. For me, when it comes to telling a story, it has to mean something to me. It really does. It has to mean something to me. Even on a story like Blood Moon, if I didn't feel like this story meant something to me, I wouldn't tell it. Same thing with Rob. He feels the same way. When it comes to King Cryptid as a series, there was years and years I've had all these different ideas for stories. And they all kind of meant something to me that, I thought, oh, that's a good idea. I should tell that, or that would be fun to tell, But I always had in the back of my mind, if I had the time, ideally, I want to devote it towards a series, an ongoing series, and I can tell as many stories as I want that revolve around a character or characters and what their journey essentially is. What are they going through? What do they want to achieve? What are they up against? Who's around in this world that's making it maybe difficult for them, and vice versa. And I love monsters. I love the paranormal. So all that stuff, I wanted to tell a story that featured something like that. I wanted to tell a story where the main character was kind of a monster. Wasn't really the run-of-the-mill superhero type or even a hero type. Someone who largely would be feared, even though they weren't doing anything bad. If anything, they were very helpful. So that was kind of the story that I really wanted to tell that meant something to me, because a lot of stories over the years that have been told in such a fashion with the same sort of theme have meant something to me. So that's kind of why I really ended up telling the story of King Cryptid. Have there been other stories like that? Sure. Tons of them have motivated me and inspired me. But this is told through my lens and my vision of what this character, this world, and the characters therein are like. So any kind of story when it comes to King Cryptid, each issue, it means something to me. There's a point to it. I want it to have not just an impact visually or with the plot or the situation or anything like that. I want it to kind of have some emotional resonance too. I want people to feel something when they read the story. I want them to feel something about the characters. I want them to care about what they're going through. I want them to hate the villains and be frustrated with them. And you can still be entertained by them. But I want them to feel like, I can really root for this character, and I can really root against this one, and maybe give them a villain they love to hate kind of a thing. That when they show up, oh man, something is going down. And if I can give multiple villains like that, multiple characters, put them in the mix, then all the better. And every step of the way, it's about making sure that the characters and the stories, that they matter, that there's something there that's providing emotion and impact. So that's my core essence of every single story I'm trying to tell. Now, when it comes to choosing a writer, well, in this instance, it's me. When it comes to choosing an artist, I don't really have a choice there. I'll give some advice about choosing a writer. If you're an artist, it's very rare when it happens. But I'll give a little bit of advice about that, I guess, before I move on to choosing an artist. So I see, not often, but every now and then, people that are artists but not writers, and they're looking for a writer for their story. Well, you want to make sure that they bring across tone and consistency. That is some of the most important stuff. Other than that, like I said, emotion, impact, making the most out of each page, making the most out of each panel that's on the page. That, to me, is of utmost importance. If you're choosing a writer who takes 3 pages to say what they could say in 1 and do it more effectively and with more impact, tone, and consistency, you'll find that it's going to kill the pacing of your book if you choose the writer who drags it out. And it's also really going to kill your budget. It's going to kill your budget. I've seen, as a publisher over the years, I've seen a lot of submissions come in and generally we accepted the first 8 pages or so. I saw a lot of submissions where in the first 8 pages, I'm wondering why they didn't make it 2. Because it felt like they were really dragging out what they wanted to say in those 8 pages. And they thought that they were, building up maybe the world, the character, tension, whatever it might be. But over the course of the 8 pages, I'm looking at it and I'm going, as far as the information being relayed to me, telling me this story, I don't really know anything about the characters. There's been nothing built up in the world. And some of the time, I wouldn't even know the characters' names or even why they were where they were and what they were trying to accomplish over the course of those 8 pages. So you can do so much more with that real estate. You're given a very limited amount of space to tell your story. Now, even if you say, well, money's no object to me, I'll have a 100-page book if I need to, instead of making a 30-page book. Okay. But you're still limited to what you could put on a page to have it still flow and make sense and everything else. So there's always going to be some aspect of a finite nature when you're putting this stuff together, and you got to take that into consideration. Now, pacing is so important when it comes to this sort of stuff with the story. You really need to draw people in right away. You need to make sure that they understand what the stakes are, what the situation is, who's involved. If it's something where it's very slow and it's building up and it's getting there, and some people like the slow burn. I'm not too much of a fan of the slow burn when it comes to setup. I don't mind the slow burn on the payoff of a plot. You're building up this, you're building up that. These characters are here, this world building is occurring there. And everything is slowly crawling to the climax of the story. I don't mind that necessarily. It's not my preferred kind of storytelling, but I don't hate it. But I do mind the slow burn on a setup. When it feels like, let's keep it to comics, when it feels like you read the whole first issue and you're still confused. You're still going, what did I just read? I don't know who's who, what's what, what's going on. Why do they want to do any of this? So it's important to understand when you want to find a writer, look for, and it's a cliche for a reason. You want to look for the who, what, where, when, and why. And maybe even the how. How does it all happen? How do you put it all together? Right? So answering those 5 questions and getting the writer to do that, getting the writer to, you let them know the gist of the story, you give them a pitch, you give them the setup, you give them, in film they call it a treatment, but you can call it a treatment too, I guess, in comics. It's basically just a 1-page summary of the story. So even when you're an artist, you still got to know how to write on some level. You still got to know how to communicate. That's all writing really is communication with a bit of a delay, misdirection, and sometimes distraction thrown in with a little surprise. That's writing. So you still have to let them know what the story is, and then see how they relay that back to you. See what their vision then as a writer is to you. Now, when you're a writer and you're looking for an artist, now you have to know what kind of art style are you looking for that will maximize the storytelling on this particular story. If you don't go down that road and you don't know, and you're just saying, well, here's my story, and any artist can come along and draw it, man, that's going to be tough. You have to be able to kind of envision it. You have to have that visual idea of what would that scene look like? What is this character going to look like? What is their attitude? How do they carry themselves? Is this character a character who is dark and slouches, or is this character a character who holds themselves upright and walks around proud? Is this a character who's sneaky? You have to have all these things in mind when you're having characterization and you're picturing things visually, and you're setting up the story of not just the character but the world. Now, as you set up and know your character, I always recommend that first, knowing your characters first, because then the world around them becomes easier. Putting them in an environment becomes easier, because then the environment and the character play off of each other. It's a lot harder the other way around. So if you come up with your setting first, and you come up with let's say they're in a city. If you come up with the fact that they're in a city, all of your character building is going to be towards that. But if you come up with character first, and personality and look and design, you can expand your storytelling horizons and not just confound to one location. So that's a really big important thing. And you'll find ways to get out of certain areas, to tell certain stories with these certain characters when you create them. Now, of course, as you create your story, you're going to have more and more of these things. You're going to have character, you're going to have location. These things are all going to start building up, and you're going to start realizing, and so are your readers, and you're going to realize it through them, what readers kind of prefer. They'll like certain characters over others. Now, does that mean you go pedal to the metal and every single character that they say they really like, everybody else, no more creation, just these characters? You really shouldn't do that, because again, it's the fact of you're creating a story and you're building things up. If you're kind of gonna go about it where you say, all right, I've created 5 issues. It seems like they only like the characters that are in 2 of them, even though I really have more stories to tell with these other characters too. Maybe I'll just lean heavily into the characters they really like. What happens is that they get tired of them. It becomes predictable. You only can write so many stories in so many ways. So you want to start building up other characters, other stories. Now, this is where it becomes important picking an artist. You got to know how you're visualizing all this stuff so you can tell the artist, or look for the right artist, if anything, that's going to bring that about. Otherwise, if you don't have an idea what to do with it visually, it's going to be really difficult to have a concise and consistent tone throughout. makes your job as a writer, or makes the job of the writer, that much harder. It makes the job of the editor impossible. So you have to understand that is so important, to have a vision and consistency in tone. And then secondary, in terms of really making sure that you hit the right moments, emotional impact. That's really important. So when it comes to the art, you got to make sure that you get an artist that could play that up. There's a lot of emotions and expressions in comic book art. There's a lot of composition. There's a lot of settings. There's a lot of drawing of everything. If it's an artist that can only draw a couple of things well, and everything else, they really don't want to go into it. So let's say they don't like drawing, and this happens a lot, they don't like drawing backgrounds or certain kinds of backgrounds or certain angles of a character. They only like drawing the left side of the face. They don't like drawing the right side of the face. They don't like drawing ever a character that we see the back of the head. Everyone's always just in the front. That's even worse if they only like drawing the front. Just the front profile, not the profile, but the front shot, center shot, right dead on of each character. And everything's like a talking head, and there's no movement, there's no variation of composition, there's nothing like that. You're limiting the storytelling, they're limiting their storytelling. Maybe you need to get a better artist or a different artist. I would certainly recommend and say that. I would say that you would definitely need to get a different artist at that point. Otherwise, you're going to find that when you're, and I've been there, you're going to find that when you're writing and you know that they can't quite pull that scene off, and you're going to go, well, I gotta take that scene out, I guess. And I've had to do that. And it's frustrating. And you got to find another way to get the same message and tone across, playing up their strengths, being aware of their shortcomings. So every artist has shortcomings. Every artist has strengths. And you got to make sure that you're playing up to their strengths at all times. Hopefully they don't have that many shortcomings, and that you can really kind of have fun telling that story and they can pull it off. So you really got to make sure when you're looking for an artist that visually you already have something in mind. Now, when it comes to anything else, I've touched upon character creation and things like that. You really want to make sure when you're creating characters, everyone has said this before, and it's because it's true, focus on silhouette. Focus on the silhouette. And by that, I mean that if they're standing in front of a window or they cast a shadow or whatever it is, you can recognize that character. Now, maybe you don't recognize that character just with them standing up, but their mannerism. Maybe there's a way that they stand. Maybe there's a pose of how, that character, you see them there, you recognize who that is. Maybe there's a feature about them in their silhouette, in their design, that would be more recognizable. And then the other thing too is a lot of the time when characters are designed, I find that there's not really a play up anymore nowadays, for the most part, on the coloring that goes with the character, where you see certain colors and you instantly know good, bad, maybe in the middle. There's not a lot of that happens anymore. Everything has become kind of visually and even morally ambiguous. So the writing's a bit morally ambiguous, the visuals are a bit ambiguous, nothing's just striking, which is very strange. And that is to the detriment of the story that you're trying to tell. I know someone might go, oh, well, it's cliche, the villain looks like a villain, the hero looks like a hero. Yeah, but that's visual communication. That's visual communication. And you can always make that hero who looks like a hero, if you know how to write, you can always turn them into a villain, and vice versa. Very easy to do. But you want to start off, and that's a very big asset that you can have with the way that you plan out your story, is playing up the visual. But that's first and foremost. When the comic's a visual medium. People like to argue about the writing and the art and this and that. We've had this conversation before too. They're both very important. They're both constantly happening. But comics are visual. You see it. There's a lot of important things that need to be done with those visuals. Now, when it comes to the character as well, you have to think about how the characters relate to each other. So if your characters all look the same when they're together, it's not really going to be an interesting image. If your characters visually can play off of each other, that's going to create an interesting image. If you think about a lot of the classic characters, and again, we'll stick to comics. If you think about a lot of the classic character setups, visually, they play off of each other very well. There's hardly an instance where you look at a character and you go, that character visually makes no sense with the other characters. And now when that happens, that character doesn't tend to last that long. And there's a reason for that, because they just don't fit with the composition, with the way the story's being told, and they're not going to speak to the reader because of that as well. So there's all these different things to consider that maybe a lot of people sometimes don't give consideration to that, but maybe you guys do. Maybe you guys do give consideration to that. So that's where this comes in. I am putting the link in here. If you guys want to join, please feel free and discuss with me, creating your perfect comic. If you have the ideal chance to take, especially I'm very curious about this, to take any story, your own story, preferably your own kind of story, what sort of genre, what kind of plot, what kind of thing, very loose terms, you don't have to get into details. And then what kind of creators would you put on this book? I'm very curious. Well, if you could pick anybody from the history of comics, who would you have write it? Who would you have draw it? And you could say yourself for these things too. You could say, oh, well, I would write it, or I would draw it, and so would write it, or so would draw it. But I'm really curious. And then especially when it comes to the mainstream, you could pick any character you want, let's say that. If you do want to go down that path, you don't have to. And who would you put together? Who would you put together? What kind of story do you think would be really interesting? And if not any of those things, what stories would you like to see out there that you're not seeing out there? What stuff do you wish existed? I'm very, very curious about that, and I promise I won't use any of your ideas. Don't go in too much into detail. I don't want anybody saying, hey, that King Cryptid issue is really familiar to that thing I said on that show that time. Don't dive too deep into it. But you could say, oh, I really like horror stories with werewolves. Okay. Well, who would draw it? Who would, write it? That kind of a thing. You don't have to dive into the nitty-gritty of the plot at hand. But if you're creating and you're making what you would consider to be your perfect comic, your ideal comic. I'm in a situation right now with King Cryptid that there's a few issues where I go, that, I don't know if I'd change anything in that. I love the way that came out. Maybe I'll feel differently in a couple of years. Who knows? I might. But for right now, and definitely during the creation process, I'm really happy with the way it came out, and I wouldn't change anything with it. And then there's been other instances where, maybe there was something I either published at Alterna, or even there's been instances too with one or two of the King Cryptid issues where I'm like, should have done this, should have done that. If I had a second chance to do that, maybe I would have done that instead. Or I had to, like what I was talking about before, I had to kind of change up something to work with the artist and come up with a compromise for my own story and storytelling, as opposed to being able to fully tell everything initially the way I thought I'd be able to. And there's always going to be a situation like that, but you try to minimize those, obviously. All right, so before I bring anybody on, I want to say hello to some more of you guys that are here. Thank you for being here. AL, what's up, AL? Hope you're doing good. Let's see, Ferris says, just back, Blood Moon. Put in my Alternoween order the other day. Oh, thank you. Appreciate that, Ferris Comics. That means a lot. Thank you so much. And yeah, we only have about a day and a half left on the initial funding period to hopefully keep us on track for the production. We would have to meet the goal tomorrow. We're about $4,000 short. And we'll see if we get there. We need a small miracle, but it could happen. Cole says, in my opinion, if a writer doesn't have a connection to the story while they're writing it, a reader won't have one while they're reading it. Yeah, I agree. And we see this happen a lot of times in various mediums where people are kind of just paid to write a story, and sometimes it just doesn't matter how good you are as a writer. If you really can't connect to that story, if you really just don't get it, it really comes across. And it ends up making you look like a less than capable writer when you could be fantastic. But if you're just not connecting with it, something's missing. And it's always going to be the emotional element that's missing. And that's the element that you find is irreplaceable, and you can't fake it. You can't duplicate it. If it's there, it's there. And when it's not, it's not. So it's very difficult to bring that about. We got Hutsil here. What's up, Hutsil? Thank you for joining us tonight. Let's see. James Q says, what's up, Pete? What's up, chat? And then switches over to his Alpha Red account. So sorry, used the wrong account. What's up? What's up, James? Thank you for being here tonight. Golden Tree says, just watched the show Your Honor and felt the writer treated the audience like they were stupid. I don't know what show that is. Is the show called Your Honor? I don't know what show that is. Let's see. But yeah, there's a lot of times where that can occur. Absolutely. Let's see here. Comics Legend says, those are good points. When you first see King Cryptid, you initially think he could be a villain with the sharp points in the design, but when you read the book, he's more of a hero, so there's a mix. Yeah, it's important to play up the visuals, but no matter how you play them up, they should be striking, and I would even say a bit simplified. And what I mean by that is don't busy up. If you busy up the design a bit too much, it's difficult to make out the character, the shape of the character, their proportions, and you lose a memorability. You know, you lose an iconic nature when you busy them up. You know, if they're all kinds of different colors, if there are all kinds of different textures on this character, if there's all kinds of different shapes, and they make no sense design-wise, they're just kind of there because you're of the mindset maybe that more of these visual elements makes it more interesting. Chances are, more likely than not, you're going to be wrong about that, and most people are going to be turned off by how busy all of that is, and it's confusing. It's visually confusing, especially when you put them in a situation with other characters, the background involved, etc. Let's see. Shrek says, I have a character slowly going insane who speaks through a talking severed head sometimes. Is that the character that you care about, though? Is that the character that you want to tell? Does that interest you? Does that get you excited to tell the story? You know, because as long as it does, you'll find a way to make it work and make it interesting. But sometimes people do things like that and they just go, well, because I haven't seen that before. You know, I'm not trying to accuse you of anything, though, Shrek. I'm just saying that you could make it work. You can make it work. What Geeks Do Network says, I dig otherworldly comics, ones not existing in our world. I like both of them, but the ones that exist here, I find they've really got to be done right. You know, you got to be playing up the earthly elements correctly for it to really strike a chord. Cole says, I always try not to think of specific artists for something I'm writing, but I do have a specific style in mind. Collaboration is important to me. I don't just want to hand off a script and get pages. Yeah, that is important. That's really, really important. You know, you don't want to be so dead focused on, let's say, you know, let's transport ourselves to 1991 and say, I want Jim Lee to draw this for me. Sure, okay, you and a couple hundred other people making their comic. But if it's kind of like a style reminiscent of, a style similar to, you know, you can work a little bit more with that. But ideally, you don't even want to be able to reference an artist that already exists. You more have an idea in your head of what you're looking for visually in terms of a stylistic nature. You know, there's kind of a more painterly style, there's a cleaner style, there's more dynamics played up. There's all kinds of different visuals you could be looking for when it comes to finding an artist. It's way more helpful to you and will be more helpful to your story as well if you can come up with the style of what you're looking for visually, as opposed to saying, I'd like the book to look like so-and-so drew it. Let's see, Ferris says, he's just thanking Spicer McLeroy. All right, so let's see, we got two people in the back here. I'm going to bring one of them on right now. I'm very curious to see what they have to say. What's up, Hutzel?
How you doing? Good seeing you again, Pete.
How are you?
I'm doing good. It's been a while. Been missing these streams. I have missed these streams, and I'm glad to have you back and being back on these streams. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. Good to have you. What's on your mind tonight?
So you were talking about stories we gravitate toward. I'm always a big fan of stories where the character is an underdog or a scrub, and has to rise to the occasion, like the Rocky Balboas. For favorite reference, I've always felt connected to those characters because I'm always more invested because you want to see them win, especially when you think they're going to win and they get knocked down and you're like, oh, come on. And so when they do win, even if it's like a little win, you're like, you have that burst of catharticism because you're like, yeah, keep going. And that's kind of how my stories are based off of. Like, I'm writing a story now where I have two main characters, but they're both considered underdogs, and they're not like the scum of society, but they're looked down on by regular people and by the upper echelon. And I want them to like rise to an occasion to where you have this character where you think, oh, they can't do anything. They're a nobody, they're a speck, but they end up like pulling off these great feats that at least the characters in world wouldn't expect to come from it. And I think those stories are more satisfying than simply someone who started off great, has done great things, and then continues to do great things. Because to me, that's not a big challenge. You can still make them interesting, but I guess that's kind of like why like the Batmans and the Spider-Mans of the world are so much more popular than say like the Supermans or the trying to think of the Captain Americas of the world, because you have characters who start off pretty much lower level to some extent, but they have to work harder to achieve a goal in the world, their goal in life.
Yeah. It's always good when characters have obstacles. You know, It's always good when they have to overcome things and not just everything is handed to them, or you know, the odds are always in their favor, and it gets boring story-wise for that, but it just doesn't make as interesting of a character. But you're right, when you have to, and I think it would be kind of fun to write a Superman type character only because of the fact that their biggest weakness, and I know it sounds weird to state it like this, but their biggest weakness would really be their compassion.
And there's nothing wrong with that, but that's just not the stories that I personally like the most. You know, if it was like, I'm trying to think of a good I'm sure you read manga. You know, my favorite the comic I'm reading now is of course One Piece. Everyone has heard of One Piece. Well, the main character, he started off, you know, in a barrel, like less than what he initially was supposed to start off with, and he was a nobody. And you see over 1,000 chapters him climb the ranks to become a somebody. Like, I love those stories. I love watching a character just, even with the optimism, he has huge obstacles, huge, just insurmountable odds. And that's what I like to put in my stories, like these seemingly impossible odds that a character has to go through to get to essentially greatness within that story.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, you make some great points there. I love those stories too. I mean, they resonate for a reason. We largely go through stuff like that all the time. I think people just, not many of us have it easy right off the bat. And I don't know if truly anyone really has it easy. It always seems like the more things look easy for someone, the more they're actually kind of more difficult than you could really understand. So it's one of those things where stories like that, I think they last forever because we always go through stuff like that. Now, when it comes to telling a story like that, we'll stick comic book wise.
Sure.
What kind of writer, what writer do you think would do great with something like that, and what artist do you think would do great for your perfect comic?
For my perfect comic, ooh, that's a good question, because like I would be like, I am the writer and the artist, but if I could pick another writer and the artist, that's a good question. I would want to pick a writer because I don't follow a lot of writers online. I honestly like the way this is going to sound weird to say this. I honestly like the way Literature Devil wrote Dr. Alpha, so I'd pick him because he knows characters, and I know he knows how to write characters. He knows how to write struggle. He knows how to write action very well, and he knows how to write tension and drama. And for the artist, I would probably want to pick someone who has very good has very dynamic poses, who can make even the mundane look interesting. So I would probably pick someone like I don't know if you've ever heard of Hiroyuki Imaishi. He's an artist for Studio Trigger, but
okay.
Yes, but he has done comics and he has done manga, and he has a very dynamic style. And I'm a big fan of his, and I've always dreamed of wanting to work with him.
All right. Fantastic. Well, thank you, man, for letting me know and sharing that with me tonight. Appreciate it.
No problem, man. Thank you for having me.
All right, man. Well, have a great night. Good to see you.
Too. Good to see you too.
All the best.
Take care.
All right. Up next, we got Rick.
Oh, me.
Otherwise known as Shrek PMC.
Yes,
What's up?
PMC. Everything's fantastic here. I think last time I was on, someone suggested I put together a trailer for some of the work that I've done. For just so to give some background, I'm a retired engineer. I retired about 3 years ago. I was painting Warhammer minis and kind of got tired of doing that, so I decided to write a story, and I decided to write it in screenplay format. Because it's a lot easier. Instead of a 400-page novel, I could tell the whole story in a 100-page screenplay. Once I wrote the screenplay, I decided, I thought, well, what am I going to do with that? Am I going to email it to people so they can just delete it? So I decided to illustrate it in Blender, narrate it, and put it on YouTube. It's not real good, but it's out there. It's a real thing. So if anyone wants to watch it, they can see it. And I put together a.
What's your perfect comic, Shrek? What's your perfect comic?
Perfect comic? Well, I don't read comic books. Let's just say that right now. I watch a lot of movies, but I don't read comic books.
But you're are you making a comic?
Well, I can show you the trailer if we get around to that.
Well, I don't really have the time to see it
cool.
on tonight's. But are you making a comic? I thought you were making a comic.
It is a it's a YouTube series illustrated in Blender, narrated by me. It's kind of like a comic, but it really doesn't.
Is it like a motion comic, that kind of a thing?
Kind of. It's more like a storyboarded screenplay. Let's describe it like that. It's illustrated in a 3D software package called Blender, and it has the balloons and stuff like that to show the dialogue.
Is this the ideal way that you would like to tell that story?
That's how I'm doing it now. The ideal way would be for somebody to discover it and decide to make a movie out of it. That's not going to happen. I know. I mean, I could probably jump, do a 10-foot high jump before that'll ever happen, or fly to the moon before that would ever happen. But I would like to. I thought when I started doing this that I would get some sort of cult following and maybe get people taking some interest and commenting on it and say, you should do this, you should do that. To improve it, you could do this, maybe you can do that, maybe. But I'm not getting any traction or any attention. So, but I'm still doing it. I figure I'll give myself 5 years. By that time, I'll be 60.
Where are you promoting it? Are you promoting it anywhere?
No, I'm not promoting it anywhere.
Oh,
I just stick it on YouTube, and that's it. and whenever I bring it up in a chat room, anytime I bring up my channel in the chat room, it for some reason that comment automatically gets deleted. It seems like it automatically gets deleted.
Oh yeah, well I mean most people don't want you to kind of just come in and spam their chat. But you're not on any other social media or anything like that, or you have a website, or you're building up a newsletter for it, anything like that?
I don't have time for a lot of this stuff. That's not all that I'm doing. I've got other stuff going on. I'm building a shed right now. I've got a house to take care of. I got stuff to do, cooking and stuff like that. But yeah, I have not even considered. I don't really know how to go about.
Well, I mean, it sounds like you gotta branch out a little bit. You can't. Yeah, you're creating in a vacuum. You're in the the tree in the forest that's falling and no one's hearing you.
No one's hearing it.
So don't sit there thinking that okay, well it'll find an audience. You have to find the audience. It's up to you as to whether or not you want to do that. But
if I knew how to do that, I might consider it. Given the time that I have available or the time that I'm willing to devote to it. I spend an awful lot of time creating. You asked what my perfect character. I have basically two main characters. I have several main characters, but one of my main character is a super genius in the Bronze Age. Okay, sort of like I was thinking throughout history there had to have been people that were, standout super geniuses. Like Elon Musk or something like that.
I don't know if I'd call him a super genius.
Yeah, I know. You're not the only one that would have that. But just think of others,
There's far more.
Thomas Edison,
people.
Whatever. No. But anyway, so I'm thinking, well, what would that kind of genius behave like in the Bronze Age or in deep ancient history? Okay. So in this case, this guy is he's out to try to figure out how to smelt iron, because it's in the transition from the Bronze Age to the Iron Age. But during that time, there was what they call the Late Bronze Age collapse, and so he's doing it through that.
Okay.
So that's one main character. Another main character is the guy with the talking head. He's a sea person, sea peoples, and he's a leader, but he's very barbaric and cruel. But he's also kind of, he has a personality. He's kind of funny. A little bit. Well, I think he's funny, but maybe not. Maybe other people might not think he's funny. But anyways, so I don't know how long you devoted for that, but that's my idea of the perfect character. I don't know if about a perfect character, but I like the super genius character idea, and the villain. He's he's. I don't know if are familiar with the Sea Peoples, but they're a group of people that came down from the Mediterranean and destroyed the Hittite Empire, almost destroyed the Assyrian Empire, destroyed the Minoan, I think it was the Minoan Empire, and the Greek Empire, the Mycenaeans. So, anyways, I don't read comic books. I haven't read a comic book since I was 6 years old.
What do you read in terms of storytelling?
Lately I've been reading Dostoevsky. I just finished up Crime and Punishment. I'm reading The Idiot right now, and then before that, I think I read Crime and Punishment, Brothers Karamazov, The Idiot, that kind of stuff.
What about in terms of genre fiction? From what you read any sword and sorcery? You read anything about?
No. I haven't read any of that.
Why not?
No. Just haven't. There's a lot of other things to do. I like the classics, kind of. I read.
I know you said you're what, 65?
64.
64. I'm gonna give you some homework as a 64-year-old. Read some sword and sorcery. Find some Robert E. Howard.
I do have Conan sitting over there on my.
Read some of it. Study some of it. Give me a book report the next time you come on.
Maybe. Well, the last time I got a book report or an assignment.
Otherwise I tell you this, because a lot of people do this. A lot of people do I built it. Why aren't they here? Field of Dreams.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, don't do that. Don't do the Field of Dreams thing. You know, if you're putting in the time, you're putting in the work, you want to get it out there, then I understand the gripe. I understand the gripe. A lot of us still don't want to hear the gripe, but I understand the gripe and I sympathize with the gripe. But if you're not doing that, if you're not doing your due diligence to improve upon your craft, especially by studying those that came before you, then don't be like, well, you know, why don't I have a cult following?
Yeah.
Well, you know,
good point.
You're answering your own questions there,
Good
Rick.
point.
So dive into some of it. I want to get your thoughts on it the next time you come on here.
Sure. Okay. Very good. All right.
I'm giving you something to do in between building all those sheds.
Yeah, I know. Hey, thanks for having me on.
No problem, Rick. Have a great night, my friend.
All right.
All right. Take it easy.
Yep.
All right. Up next, we got Madison. What's up, Madison?
How's it going, Pete?
Good, good. How are you? What are your thoughts on tonight's subject?
Yeah, I think perfect comic book. If only I could make the perfect comic book, right?
Well, that's what we're all trying to make our own perfect comic book. Yes, yes. We'll never get there, but it's always about the struggle, the ever struggle and pursuit of perfection.
What did they say? Perfection's a dead end, right? Because once you get there, there's nothing else.
Exactly. That's why it's always so fleeting.
Right.
Exactly.
But yeah, I think for me, obviously, if I was doing like a perfect comic, let's just say I'm the writer, because I'm a writer and I write comic books, so I feel like it'd be weird for me to pick another writer to write something.
Well, I'll ask you of this: if you could name one writer that has had the most influence on you, who would that be?
Oh, in comics.
If you could leave it to comics, that'd be great. But I'll take any writer, whatever.
So I would say someone. It's not going to be a name that most people are even familiar with.
Okay. Well, we'll become familiar with it now.
Yeah. So Takayuki Yamaguchi.
Okay.
And he's the writer artist. Like, you know, most Japanese mangas are, you know, usually it's the artist and the writer. They're doing the Frank Miller thing, right? They're doing it all. Definitely very influential, storytelling wise. Kind of like the way I would put the storytelling, or like how he's doing things, it's kind of like a show like The Shield, Sons of Anarchy. You know, there is some moral I'm fumbling my word, moral ambiguity there. But you know, that, and then the art style, his art style is like very anatomy focused. So like I'm actually eventually probably gonna put a story together where I'll be looking for artists similar to that. But definitely that's definitely been a big influence over the past maybe 15 or 16 years for what I'm doing, and a big inspiration for my samurai comic Eta, in regards to what I did with that, and kind of the style and what I was looking for that book. So yeah, definitely that's definitely a big influence. And like right now I'm working on a fantasy comic, Unicorn Melee 2, which is you know, kind of set medieval style. It's really its own world, so it's not hard set medieval, but that's kind of the basic premise of the landscape. And I did a lot of leaning into like Frank Frazetta when I was writing it, and trying to figure out what kind of artists, you know, because like for me, like each story that I write, like it's like the characters, and then there's the story, and then I have to find an artist to bring that to life. Where like sometimes there's some good artists, but I don't feel like their style is going to match the tone of the story to really give the story what it needs to be, right? So like an example would be the artist working on Unicorn Melee 2 actually wanted to work on Eta, the samurai story, but I went with somebody else, not because his artwork wasn't any good. It's actually fantastic, but he's a European artist, and I'm trying to tell a Japanese style story, and it really had that kind of European, and it just didn't fit. So I went with somebody else, but now I have a European kind of style story that I'm telling this time around. So then I went back to him, you know, to work on this story. So like a lot of times, like you kind of got to pair the story you want to tell. Like I have a friend who's a great artist, but I don't have any work for him because I don't have any stories that really fit his art style. You know, so like it's like one of those things where for me, like the perfect is the marriage between the type of story you're trying to tell, and then because it's comic books, it's a visual medium. So then it's the visual behind it, right? Like it's like if Sin City was full color, you know, like you see like you know, if you're doing everything.
Yeah, I mean, well, if Sin City was like 70s Frank Miller,
right,
it'd be a much different tone and everything that comes across.
Or even if someone like Rob was like did Blood Realm and he did full color spread, you know, completely changes the tone of the story. Completely changes, you know, so like everything kind of goes into making that perfect story where like, you know, you have the style of story you want to tell, and then what kind of colors do you want? You know, do you want to do a black and white story? Does that fit for your story? Or do you want to go color? And if you go color, what kind of color, right? Because then there's that nuance into it as well, where do you want muted colors? Do you want something very bright and vibrant? Maybe it's like a fun kid's story, so you're gonna come with like you're doing My Little Pony, right? So everything's bright pinks, turquoise, you know, those kind of things versus doing something that's like maybe a little more edgier or grittier, or I guess in the case of manga, just because, you know, almost all their stories are designed to be told in black and white, budget wise, because they're not going to do full color. That's really kind of how it started. But now all the stories kind of work out and are told great with you know, differentiating characters by their hairstyle. You know what I mean? You know, kind of sometimes copy paste faces with manga.
Oh yeah.
But the hair, but the hairstyle changes so you can identify the characters.
Absolutely.
No color, right?
Something like black and white, especially, you really have to make sure character design and silhouette and all that stuff is really played up.
Yeah, like as you mentioned, when you see the silhouette, does that character, you know, like if you see the King Cryptus silhouette, you know what that silhouette is, you know. If you see the Juggernaut silhouette, you know what that silhouette is when you see it. You know, it's you know, so all of those things I think kind of come into play for like essentially making like the perfect story. So like, yeah, like for me, I always try to find something that fits the style. If I'm going for a European style right now with what I'm working on, I have a European artist, I have a European colorist. You know, because I think it just it just marries well together for the comic. And I think like I can't come on the show and I was going through some colorists at the time, trying to find someone to get it just right for what I liked, and that you know, ultimately going that route, I think helped the comic become what it needed to be.
Well, I've got some questions for you, but you're going to be back here on Wednesday, so I'm going to hold them till then.
Yeah. But if people haven't checked out Takayuki Yamaguchi, check out. It's called Shikuri Death Frenzy. He's got another number of titles, but if you're into like samurai stuff, it's a really weird story. You know, it's not like, so like for manga, there's different kind of, you know, they categorize them, right? Like I think most people talk about shonen, which is basically young boys, right? That's what you get with like Bleach and One Piece, Naruto, things, you know, even though adults read them, but there's this is not that. This is more like a setting, which is like for adults. This is something more along the lines of Berserk, something like that. So don't get this for your kids.
Oh, okay.
But
okay.
yeah, do not get this for your kids. But check it out, especially if you're an artist and you're like looking at anatomy. Check it out because it's incredible. The artwork is incredible.
All right. Well, thank you so much for stopping by tonight and sharing that with me and with the chat. Appreciate it, man. And I'll see you on Wednesday at 9.
All right. Yeah. Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. Take it easy, Madison. All right. So Madison will be on the show on Wednesday at 9. That's the 25th at 9 o'clock Eastern. So we'll see him again. I had a couple questions, but I didn't want to spoil him or harp on it too much and give him a double interview. Maybe he's trying to cheat a bit. I don't know. Anyway, good talking to everybody. Good talking to you, Madison, Rick, and Hutzel. Appreciate you guys being here. Everybody in the chat, too. Appreciate you guys as well. You guys are awesome. We're getting a Bogan raid just as I'm ending. I'm wrapping things up right now. But I appreciate it. Thank you, Michael Bancroft, for the Bogan raid, even though we're wrapping up. Leave me a comment. Let me know. What's your perfect comic? If you're a creator, let me know, what are you doing even to try to get to that, what you would consider perfection? Because it's fleeting. What you think is perfect today, I guarantee maybe even a month or less from now, maybe you don't think it's as perfect. Maybe you think, should have done that. Or, I see that one thing there, that one page, that one panel. Maybe next time. Because that's all we really got, especially once it's done. And you got to eventually say it's done. You can't just keep on letting perfect be the enemy of the good. You got to get it done. You got to get it out there. And then when you see certain things, you go, okay, on the next one, I won't do that. Everything's a learning experience. So you got to allow yourself that too. But as we're trying to create our ideal comic, or if you're a reader and you're not a comic creator and you want to see what you would believe to be your ideal story, where you're sitting there and going, I wish there was a story like that. Let me know. What is it that you guys enjoy reading? What is it that you guys wish you would see more of? Types of stories, types of characters. Because I feel like a lot of the conversation we have creatively right now with these sort of things, it's too much about what is existing in front of us and not enough about what we would like to see, what we wish existed. It's too much of a reaction as opposed to creativity, which is a proactive kind of way of thinking. Because you're making something that doesn't exist. You're bringing it into existence. So you can't say this thing and then I'll mold it around and do that. That's not really creating. That's just kind of futzing around and playing with something that already exists. If you're creating something that does not exist at all, but is influenced obviously by things that do, maybe you miss certain things. You wish we had more of this kind of character, or more of this kind of story, or more of this genre, or whatever it may be. That's something that I would like to see that conversation happen more and more of. I try to talk a lot about that when I talk about the stories that I'm creating and what I'm trying to do. And it's a proactive way of thinking. More kind of proactive imagination, inspired, aspirational creativity, as opposed to let's just react to the thing of the day that someone else is doing. We can make our own stories. We can make our own characters. We can put what we'd like to see in the world. We can do that. They can do it. They are doing it. Why not us? And many of us are. So those conversations, I really enjoy seeing those conversations. I enjoy seeing people get creative. I enjoy seeing people use their imagination. I enjoy people being inspired by things and being even influenced by even some of the stuff maybe that they don't like. And they go, I don't really like this and this. Why is there so much of that? And you can turn that around into something positive and say, okay, because I don't like so much of this, I can create this. Or seek out the people who are. Because I guarantee that there are people out there doing that very thing that you wish there was more of. All right, guys, I'll see you tomorrow night, hopefully, on the Alternate Comics channel. Alternate Comics having a initial funding closeout stream tomorrow night. I'm hoping that Rob Geronimo and Kier Covington will be there and join me. I hope you guys join me too. Again, that's on the Alternate Comics channel at 9 o'clock Eastern. Initial funding closeout stream for Blood Moon. The Blood Moon campaign is currently 67% funded, with just like a day and a half or a day and a quarter at this point left. So get in on that. It's a great crossover between King Cryptid and the Blood Realm universe. Both titles and their main characters, King Cryptid and Chiron Morvel, are teaming up to take on the cosmic threat known as Vargor. Lots of stakes involved. We're not pulling any punches. And no retcons, no reboots, no takebacks. This is going to be an in-continuity crossover, and I think you guys are really going to enjoy it. So make sure you get in on it, and then we can stay on production. All right. Take it easy, guys. We'll see you soon. All the best. Have a wonderful night and an even better tomorrow. See you guys soon.